Okay, so here we are, just trying to get this set up so that you guys can see what's going on. I have these little pumpkins that I have made over the years, and they're cute. I love, having the little ones around. There's one that decided to dive off the table that I'm gonna grab here real quick. I like the ones that are different colors. So I'm gonna show you, the basics of how to make, how to needle felt a pumpkin today. And we're gonna make a big one. Now I've got about an ounce of colored bat that I love because it's got some color and texture. They're kind of fun and funky, and I wanted to have an unusual larger pumpkin. I also have about 5 ounces of undyed roving. This is, I'm not gonna use the whole thing. I'm gonna use, about half of it to make a larger pumpkin. All 4 of these smaller pumpkins together weighed about 3 ounces. So that gives you an idea. So I'm gonna take, a smaller amount. No, this is gonna work for the core. I'm gonna take a smaller amount to work with to start out, and then we'll add some additional fiber to help get it a little bit more plump. And I'm got to decide whether I want to go plump or whether I want to go tall. Now, you saw me just pulling that roving apart into 4 different pieces. The reason I did that is because to get a nice core on any kind of sphere, it works out really well for you to be able to tie just a loose overhand knot in it just to get things started for you. And I'm just tucking the ends in. With needle felting, it's all about making sure that you have squished out as much of the air as you possibly can so that you're not having to work too hard. I'm using my green needle, which is my size 38 needle, and I'm following, the Anna Walker Designs rules about needle felting. Always know where your non-stabbing hand is. Use your elbow, not your wrist, and come out of the fiber the same direction you go into the fiber. Now this first pass is just about getting this wool sort of basted in place. Now the nice thing is, because this is a sculpture and not a toy, not something that's going to be, messed with a whole lot, I don't need to do a really huge firm felting on this, but I do want to have a nice medium felt on this. So I'm just going to work this around until I've got those fibers basted, and then I'm going to grab my multiple needle tool, because that tends to make things go a little faster for me. And I think we're going to have a little taller guy. And this multiple needle tool can be found at most craft stores that carry felting supplies. This one is from Clover, that's the brand. And I like it because it can hold 1, 2, or 3 needles, and it keeps them pretty close together so that you can focus your felting in one very specific area. It just makes the felting process go faster when you've got more than 1 needle when you're working on a larger project. Now you can have several of these multiple needle tools like I do, and you can have different size needles in each of them. This has got my size 38 needles in it, so it's a coarser needle, which is great for starting your project out. And then you'll go to, a size 40, maybe a size 42 if you're doing maybe a jack-o'-lantern face on one of your pumpkins. I would probably use a size 42 superfine needle to give you the details, but size 38 and 40 needles pretty much work for just about any felting project, any needle felting project. Now you can also make pumpkins the same way that you make dryer balls and do them as a combination of wet felting and needle felting. If that were the case, then once you got it to a basic set, then you would shove it down a leg of pantyhose and you would throw it into the washer with some towels or some jeans or something rough and bulky like that. so that the fibers get bounced around and bruised up a little bit. That's what helps the felting process. So again, I'm just, making sure that I get all the way around, and then I'm going to add some additional fiber just to sort of flesh this out. Now you can see that I like to park my needles in the foam that I have at the base of my surface here, because that foam helps to protect my surface, my table surface. And when I add additional roving like this, I'm going to add it, one little bit at a time. And I'm just adding it to sort of plump out those sections of the pumpkin so that I can get some detail in here. And I'm going to add a little bit more. And when I'm wrapping, you can see that I'm sort of wrapping flat. There's a reason for that. But you may want to wrap sort of spiral. I'm wrapping flat so that I can see distinctive pieces here and not have twisted bits. If you wrap another way, it'll give you very defined sections, and I don't want sections that are quite that defined. I want to be able to do that defining between the sections with my needle. I'm going to get this multiple tool again. And you can come at the project from different angles. And I frankly recommend coming at it from different angles, because that makes sure that you get all of your fiber felted nice and evenly. And I'm not worrying about these little depression areas, because that is going to help me build up the sections of my pumpkin. The more you stab in an area, the more recessed that area becomes. I wanted to say receded, and it needed to be recessed. So you can see that just by stabbing between each of these sections, each of these places where I wrapped that fiber, that secondary fiber around, I'm getting some nice little sections of the pumpkin. And it's coming together. But you can see already we're starting to get our sections built up here. And it's just a matter of continuing on. We want to make sure that we get the needle everywhere, even on the portions of the section that are more noticeable, that are plumped out. But we want to give extra attention in the areas between those sections. And that'll give us that sculpted look of our pumpkin. I think it's neat to be able to make up several pumpkins in different sizes and different colors to be able to use on a centerpiece. They're fun to just put in a bowl, to lay down on a pretty placemat, create a little tablescape. And most of the work that happens when you're needle felting happens with this undyed wool to build up your underbody, to build up the sculpture itself. And then very little time is taken on the project to add the color, because the color just goes on the very outer edge of this. You're doing most of the sculpting work in the undyed form. And then you add the color on top, just like you would skin a doll. You know, you build up the doll's body and then you put clothes on top of it. Well, consider the color of the pumpkin, the clothes of the pumpkin. We're just building the doll body right now. And I like the lumpy and bumpy, not perfect pumpkins. That's just me. You can make yours as smooth as you want to make them. But I like that natural look. I mean, you can see I've got some of these, you know, between the colorations and, you know, the little bumps and cracks. This one in particular has some good pieces there that are a little lumpy and bumpy. Little dimples in there from, you know, where the pumpkin might have laid down on its side. And that's what brings the beauty to the pumpkins and the gourds and the squash and all of that, is because they've grown on the vine and they've laid down on the ground in certain ways, and one side is flatter than the other, and another side has got a dimple in one of the little sections. I just love having that natural look to things. But that's just me. Make yours as smooth or as lumpy as you want. Now, this is, you know, a good start on our pumpkin. We've got some nice little delineations here, but I want to grab a finer needle. This is a size 40 needle, and I want to work this a little bit more deliberately all the way around instead of being so general and wide with my stabbing. Now, I could use one of my other multiple needle tools that has finer needles in it, but it's over on the other table and I don't want to stop to go find the right one. I need to use my label maker to mark these so that I know what size needles are in each of them. That would be a smart thing to do. And so I'm just going around the entire pumpkin with this size 40 needle, and I am giving it a once over all the way around, and then I'll work this needle very definitively in between each of the sections. And because this is not going to be played with, it's not, you know, a child's toy, it's just a sculpture that's going to be on a table, not going to get moved around a whole lot. It'll be in a basket or in a bowl probably. I am not going to worry about getting this super well felted. If I wanted well felted, I would take it, as I said before, and throw it into the washing machine and let it do some firm felting like I would with dryer balls. But this is a sculpture, and so I can let it be at a medium felt and let that be as firm as I get it felted. Now I'm just reinforcing in between each of the sections. I'm not really concerned if I see a little divot or a little dimple come up, because I like that. I'm going for that look. And I'm not worried if a section like this one is more angled than it is straight, because again, I'm going for a natural look with this. All right, so this takes us all the way around. It's sitting okay. I think I like this as the top better. So what I want to do is build in a center for this. I'm going to use the multiple needle tool and just stab repeatedly right there in the middle. So that I can add a stem to this. And this is sitting nice and flat, but I want to give it just a little extra help here so that it will stand and not wobble. It's just a matter of working the needles over the base to make it nice and flattened. And oh, I like even more because it's a little bit offset. I'm liking this. Okay, so we've got our pumpkin. Now I'm going to move these off and we're going to add some color. And we're going to add that color with this fun little bat here that I have. And I have some pieces of this bat that I cut away from another project, and I'm going to go ahead and use them. and I'm just stretching them out a little bit. I am not going to worry if I've got a little bit of the undyed fiber showing through on the back, on the front side, because it is just going to add to the color and texture here. Now I'm anchoring it here in the center where the stem's going to be, and then I am just walking it down with some very gentle stabs because I've got the base felted. I just need to attach or felt these new fibers, the color, onto the top surface. I don't need to felt all the way into the center of the pumpkin. And I'm just going to play with how much of this I'm going to add and where I'm going to add it so that I can get the look that I'm going for. Again, I'm just going to anchor it here in the top. And then I'm going to bring it on down using those gentle stabs, reinforce where I've got those sections. Just looking to get a nice attachment. And this could easily be a ghost pumpkin with just a little bit of this as kind of, a little bit of the color as kind of a ruffle at the top, but I'm going to add the color all the way around because I think it's going to look pretty fabulous next to these brightly colored ones that I have. And right now I'm adding it. I'll go through and I will give it a better felting after I've got the color added. Again, anchoring it here in the center. And think of the different colors. I've found it quite refreshing and interesting in the past few years that non-orange pumpkins and gourds have been embraced like they have. Even the turquoise and the pale silvery gray ones. And I like the different colors. It just gives you the option of decorating and creating something very unique and very one of a kind. Let's grab some more, tack it down here. Some more of these that I used for another project, fluff them out a little bit more. Let's add them on in. Anchoring here in the center where the stem's going to be. And then bringing it on down, lightly stabbing into the base. Just shallow stabs is all you need to do to get this to attach. And then reinforcing those segments. I'm going to actually switch over. Let's see how this does. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. Just a little firm. But I think we can still make it work. I like working with a single needle when it comes to putting on color, just because I think that it gives me a little bit better control. And I can always come in with a multiple needle tool afterward. All right, we've got this last little bit here, and then I'll go back to the bat. I do want to take and reinforce where that stem's going to be. And I'm just stabbing straight down, and I am stabbing pretty hard. Because I want to have a center here where I can slide in and anchor a cinnamon stick to use for the stem on this. Let's just get the rest of this added in here. When it goes to adding the color, very much like when you're working the sculpture to begin with, think about a grid pattern so that you make sure that you get all of the areas of the fiber covered. Now I'm doing a very loose job right now. When it comes to adding color, I treat it very much like I do at the beginning of a project, and I sort of baste it around first, and then I'll go through and I will cover it more deliberately in that grid pattern. Gotta remember to tuck my fingers in so you guys can see what I'm doing. Okay, so we've got a nice start to the color, and I'm gonna pull some bits off of this fiber bat here. This fiber bat I have discovered has some really good sized pieces of veggie matter still in them, and you'll find that sometimes depending on the type of wool. This has got a fair amount of, oh shoot, it was just in my head, and now it's got a fair amount of mohair in it. So it's a little tricky when it comes to those extra little bits of veggie matter. Now I'm just going to sort of lay it out over a larger place, over a larger piece, and just want to get that piece of veggie matter out of there. Let's get those off. There we go. There's another piece there. It's amazing how much veggie matter can hide in wool when you're working with it. I mean, and that can be even rovings, you know, like the undyed fiber here. It amazes me how often I will find pieces of grass or little burrs in fiber that looks like it's perfectly clean and processed. But you know what? Those animals, they like to be out in their yards, and a lot of them like to roll around in their yards, and they will get little bits of fiber mixed up with their burrs and grasses and such. This is the reason that I like this particular bat. Can't even remember where I got it. It was just one of those things that I found and I thought, ooh, this is perfect. But this is why I like it. See all those colors and all that texture from those curls still in there? And then there's some shimmer in there too. I just love this bat for using for a pumpkin's color. I think it's gonna make for a very unique pumpkin. And what's the point of doing something if you can't have it be unique and one of a kind? It's even got a little purple in there. Yay! You guys know me and my purple. I miss my purple hair. I'm kind of getting used to this natural hair, but I miss my purple. Now, the mohair is really fluffy, so it will take some time to get all of those little hairs attached, but it will happen. You just got to be deliberate about it. Let's get another little bit of this. These colors and textures are just amazing. When I'm adding this extra little bit of fiber to sort of finish out the pumpkin, I'm not anchoring as much in the stem area because I want to make sure I get the coverage. I've got enough anchored in the stem area that I know it's going to be okay there, but I want to make sure I've got coverage all the way around the pumpkin. And now I think I'm going to have to work upside down to get the rest of this. Get those little bits of veggie matter out. There's some more. There's another little piece. You gotta be okay with veggie matter when you're working with wool because you will find it. And please forgive the dog. She's just feeling the need to get my attention, and she's not gonna have it for just a few minutes here yet. Yes, I'm talking about you. Now, because this has got a fair amount of mohair in it, every once in a while I'm going to tack this down, and then I'm going to show you a way that you can get that fiber to sort of behave itself and not be so, you know, sticky and sticking out there. You can definitely take it and you can roll it in your hands, and a little bit of the heat and the friction from your hands will help those fibers sort of plant themselves down a little bit and make it a little easier on you. I'm going to use the multiple needle tool right now because I want to see what I've got, where I've got it, and where I need to add some additional fiber. And you can see that the multiple needle tool works really well for taking care of any of these errant hairs from the fiber. It tacks them down really quite nicely. And then I can go in and I can sort of reinforce those segments in between. And on the fluffy bits, you know, the pieces of the segments that are sticking out, you want to stab just a little more shallowly and then a little more deliberately in the section divisions. And that'll help reinforce the sculpture that you made. Got a couple of little places that I found where I'm going to need to add some fiber, and that's okay. That's the whole point of this, is to figure out where I still need to add fiber. Reinforcing the segment divisions. Another little area where we're going to need to add some fiber. Flatten out the bottom again. Take a look at the top. Reinforce our stem area. Okay. And just a couple of little areas where we need to add some fiber and tack that color down. Reinforcing the segments up here at the top really deliberately. Because they'll come in at that stem. And so that needs to be where we reinforce those. They're a little flatter on the bottom. Okay, let's add just a tiny bit more in those areas that need just a little bit more color coverage. And then we'll be done. And all that will remain is to find my cinnamon sticks and to add a little bit of a stem on there. All right, so let's put this right in here. And we can gather this up to sort of bunch those colors right in that area where we need the color at. And again, I'm just going to tack this in place, and then I'll come in with a multiple needle tool to finish attaching that. Got another spot right here. I'm okay with that there, but that needs a little bit more. So let's blend this up just a little bit. Let's get some little pinches down here. You see why I like the color of this bat for the pumpkin. It gives it a very natural, organic feel. I can draft some of these up here. All right, let's see what we got here. I think I will add just a tiny bit there. I am happy with the addition. Now I'm going to use the multiple needle tool just to firmly attach that. And by firmly, I mean, you know, shallow stabs just to add the color to the top edge of the sculpture. Not trying to felt it any further, just looking to add that color to the sculpture itself. So pretty shallow stabs to get that to attach. The more you stab in an area, the more recessed it's going to become. So you could find yourself, if you stabbed a little bit too firmly, could find yourself felting down your pumpkin to be smaller than what you had wanted it to be. So, you know, err on the side of less is more, walk away from it, and then you can always felt some more if you decide, no, it really needs a little bit more there. That's okay. But if you felt it too far, you can't unfelt it. Not very easily anyway. Certainly not a sculpture. If you're doing a felt painting, sometimes you're able to pull off that top edge if you've just added something that doesn't look quite right, but there's no guarantee that you'll be able to do that as cleanly as what you'd like to do. So it's always better to do less, walk away, take a look at it, you know, in an hour, in another day, in a week, whatever. It'll be waiting for you. And then make that determination if you've done enough. Flattening out the bottom here and reinforcing my stem again and the top portion of my segments. And I think we have a pumpkin. What do you think? I love the colors. And now all it's going to need is a cinnamon stick here. If I can't get this deep enough to attach it, I can always take an X-Acto knife or a sharp paring knife or something and sort of cut an X opening so that I can shove the cinnamon stick down in there. But I'm happy. We have a very organic, colorful pumpkin to add to the tablescape. And I hope that you've had fun this morning. I have a great weekend. Oh, need to be said. I will not be live Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. I will be traveling all 3 of those days, so I'll not be live. But Thursday and Friday next week, I'll be sure to come to you live right here at 10 o'clock. And I will see you later. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.